Nintendo is responsible for some of the most iconic game series in the world, thanks to the combination of its innovative hardware and software products. Franchises like Mario, Donkey Kong, The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Pokemon, and many others are just a few examples of the exclusive games that have captivated millions of fans. But Nintendo's story didn't start this way. Founded in 1889, Nintendo began its activities long before entering the world of electronic games and consoles as we know them today. Did you already know that? Stay until the end of the video to discover how Nintendo evolved and became the gaming industry giant it is today. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Nintendo was founded on September 23, 1889, by Fusajiro Yamauchi in Kyoto, Japan. Surprisingly, the company did not start with electronic games as we know them today, but with a card game called Hanafuda, a name that might sound strange to many. The Hanafuda deck consists of 48 cards, 4 for each month, with illustrations inspired by the seasons. The goal of the game is to form special card combinations and accumulate points. If you're curious to play, know that Hanafuda is available for the Nintendo Switch, as you can see right now. In 1902, a new Western-style card game was launched, but it was very poorly documented. Nintendo even entered the toy business with the Ultra Hand, which was designed to grab objects. There was even a device called the Love Tester to measure how much a couple was in love. Can you believe that? However, we won't talk much about these small Nintendo ventures. I mentioned them so they wouldn't go unnoticed. It was only years later that the company's heir, Hiroshi Yamauchi, decided to expand Nintendo's field of action, taking it into the electronic gaming market. It was only in 1977 that Nintendo began to explore the world of video games, launching the Color TV game console. However, it was only in the 1980s, after entering the North American market, that the company, under Yamauchi's leadership, established itself in the sector. The Color TV game, which you're seeing now, had several versions. Although very different from today's consoles, it already had 2 controllers for multiplayer and used a rotary dial to move the game elements on the TV. Back then, the console could already operate on batteries in addition to electricity. This showed that Nintendo was ahead of its time and was trying to achieve the best performance in its games and consoles, as will be shown later. The Color TV game did not have space for cartridges, so you could only play a single game that was quite simple, like a basic tennis or volleyball game, where the goal was not to let the ball pass the bar you controlled, and the scoreboard showed who was winning. I confess, I don't even know how many points it took to win the game. I think it was a game without an end. Among all the versions of the Color TV game, the Color TV Racing 112 stood out as one of the best. It came with a steering wheel, allowing players to experience for the first time the sensation of driving a car. For the 1970s, this was incredible, and I'm sure you agree. If I had been born back then, I would have gone crazy to have a Color TV Racing 112. In 1978, the Color TV Game Block Kuzushi was released, similar to the previous ones, with some added changes. In 1980, Nintendo launched its first handheld console, the Game & Watch, one of the first portable video games with an LCD screen and microprocessor. Each Game & Watch unit featured a unique game, and some versions also included a clock, giving the device its name. The Game & Watch was extremely popular for many years, selling millions of units in the 1980s and helping Nintendo establish itself in the portable gaming market. Before that, in 1979, Nintendo released the arcade game Radar Scope. Although it had some success in Japan, Radar Scope was a failure in North America, leaving Nintendo with a large stock of unsold arcade machines. At this point, Shigeru Miyamoto, who had joined Nintendo in 1977, was tasked with developing a new game using the Radar Scope hardware. From this challenge, Miyamoto created a new franchise that you know very well, Donkey Kong. This game was a crucial moment for Nintendo, as it was not only a worldwide arcade success, but also introduced characters who would become video game icons. What you may have heard is that Nintendo initially wanted to create a game based on the character Popeye, where Bluto would throw barrels while Popeye tried to rescue olive oil from his hands. However, the deal for the rights to Popeye didn't work out. Because of this, Nintendo decided to modify the characters. Bluto became Donkey Kong, Olive Oil became Pauline, and Popeye was transformed into Jumpman, who would later become Mario. In TOS 1985, the game Super Mario Bros. Was released simultaneously for the Famicom in Japan and the NES in North America. This game quickly became one of the most influential and popular of all time, marking the beginning of the Super Mario series as we know it today. Super Mario Bros. Introduced the iconic plumber, Mario, in his mission to save Princess Peach from the villain Bowser in the Mushroom Kingdom, and set a new standard for platform games that is still successful today. The Famicom, Family Computer, and the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, are essentially the same console, but with different names and designs for different markets. The Famicom was released in Japan on July 15, 1983, and quickly became a success, helping to popularize video games in the country. The North American version of the Famicom, the NES, was released in North America on October 18, 1985. At the time, the North American video game market was in decline due to the 1983 crash. But the launch of the NES, with its redesigned look and a library of innovative games like Super Mario Bros., helped revitalize the video game industry in North America, establishing Nintendo as a global powerhouse in the sector. Obviously, I can't talk about all the great games for the NES, but it's worth mentioning some notable ones here. Besides Mario Bros., which I already mentioned, like Mario Bros. 3, Metroid, Excitebike, where we could build tracks, Duck Hunt with the use of the gun, Zippy Race and its exciting background music, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the iconic The Legend of Zelda, and many other games that made the NES what it is today. At that time, consoles were not as established as they are today, which led to the emergence of several pirate copies of the NES around the world. These clones, which were popular at the time, are still found and consumed by enthusiasts today. An interesting detail about the character Mario is that he underwent some design changes due to the graphic limitations of the consoles at the time, which used large pixels. To make Mario easily recognizable, Nintendo chose to give him overalls in contrasting colors, a hat, a big nose, and a distinctive mustache. Without these distinctive features, it would have been difficult to identify the character, but that's a story for another video. In 1989, Nintendo released the first Game Boy, a portable console that quickly became a video game icon. The Game Boy was revolutionary for its compact design and ability to run a wide range of games on cartridges, making it extremely versatile. Among the most notable games was Tetris, which became a global phenomenon and helped solidify the Game Boy's success. The console not only set new standards for portable video games, but also established Nintendo as a dominant force in this emerging market. Back then, video game generations evolved rapidly, with significant changes between models, which is not as common nowadays. In 1991, Nintendo released the evolution of the NES, the Super Nintendo, which became one of the favorite consoles for many, including me. The Super Nintendo, unlike its predecessor, had 16 bits instead of 8 bits, and was part of the fourth generation of video games. Its library had over 6,000 games, including the iconic Super Mario World, which came bundled with the console and is considered one of the best games in the franchise. It was also the game where we met the beloved Yoshi and stood out for the graphic quality of the time. Super Mario World is so remarkable that it deserves an entire video dedicated to it. It's important to highlight that the Super Nintendo was released on different dates around the world. Japan, November 21st, 1990. North America, August 21st, 1991. Europe, April 11th, 1992. The Super Nintendo had a lasting impact on the video game industry, establishing many of the standards that are still followed today. The console played a crucial role in popularizing various game genres and solidified Nintendo as one of the world's leading game developers. Many games released for the Super Nintendo are still considered some of the best ever created. Here are some games that have marked me and continue to bring back good memories. Donkey Kong Country, especially Donkey Kong Country 2, Metroid, particularly Super Metroid, Chrono Trigger, Nosferatu, The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse, Goof Troop, Top Gear, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 2, and many other wonderful games. For many people, including me, the Super Nintendo offers a dose of nostalgia that makes these games some of the best of all time. The second part of this video will be released soon, so if you don't want to miss it, make sure to subscribe to the channel to get notified about the next videos. This also helps me grow and monetize the channel. You might not know, but creating these videos takes at least 2 full days of work, and it takes a lot of effort to bring them to you. I really appreciate you watching the video all the way through. I'll see you in the next video.